This is widely considered the single greatest novel of all time, and it's a giant. It took me 6 weeks to read, over 800 pages, really small typeface and leading. And I can honestly say there was my life that existed before reading Brothers Karamazov, and there's my life that exists now, and they're two different things. Reading this has been an absolutely watershed moment in my journey through literature. So after spending 6 weeks inside these pages, I wanted to share with you 5.5 things that surprised me about Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov. Number one, you can't really spoil the book. The book is way more about ideas than it is events. It's more about concepts than it is happenings. Throughout the course of all these pages, there may be 6 or 7 or 8 sort of big events that occur, but otherwise the pages are filled with engagements between characters that draw out really deep and riveting, wonderful studies on the philosophy of human nature, God, and the nature of existence. In fact, I could tell you all the big stuff that happens in this book, who gets murdered, who does it, why it happens, and it still wouldn't spoil the material. It'd still be absolutely riveting to read because it's not about plot twists and things happening. It's about the concepts that Dostoevsky is working out in the material. It's an unspoilable book. The second thing that surprised me is it's funny. I found myself kind of smirking and even laughing a little bit at different points, sometimes because it was intentional on Dostoevsky's part, sometimes it's unintentional, but there's a lot of material in here where the way the characters respond to each other, the subtleties of some of the ideas and the funny situations, there's quite a bit of humor in the book that I didn't see coming as I approached pretty dark Russian literature. The third thing that surprised me is I saw myself in this book. Now, with any good literature, we find ourselves in it, but it was true in this book to a degree that I did not expect. There are 3 brothers in this book, possibly a 4th, but we'll say three brothers in this book. Ivan, who's the intellect, the thinker, cerebral, atheistic, prizes rationale above anything else. There's Dmitri, who's carnal, emotional, impulsive. Then there's Alyosha, who's tender-hearted, a monk. He's the religious, spiritual brother. And most anyone across the human race, regardless of background, can find themselves in one of those characters. And many of us see all 3 of those characters within ourselves to some degree. So this book acts as a mirror for our own human nature, way beyond what I ever expected. The 4th thing that surprised me is just how important this book is. I knew it was monumental going in, but I didn't think that I would be saying what I'm about to say to you now, which is that beyond biblical literature and perhaps the works of Shakespeare, this is the most important work of literature that's ever been released. It's not just about the ideas, the content, the prophetic nature of the book, but who it inspired. Take a scroll through the Wikipedia page of Brothers Karamazov, do some research, some articles, look at who this book impacted, from Camus to Faulkner to Walker Percy to Nietzsche. So many people were deeply inspired by Brothers Karamazov and read it and reread it and based their own works on it. Just have a look at who Dostoevsky influenced and you'll realize all of the great thinkers, all of the great books that we enjoy and appreciate, nearly all of them have some sort of root in Dostoevsky's work, namely Brothers Karamazov. It was so impactful on the literature we know and love today. Questions like what's my favorite book or which did I enjoy most, those are subjective and I have some thoughts on that. But overall, I can't think of a more important novel that exists than this one. Number 5, I was surprised at how this book made me feel toward other books. When I put down Brothers Karamazov, I picked up another book that I was reading by a really popular author, a really popular book. And as I'm looking through the pages, I was like 100, 150 pages in, and the book just felt like amateur hour. As sad as that might be, I've heard people say Dostoevsky ruined all other literature for them. I won't go that far. I think that's an overstatement and it lacks nuance. But for sure, after finishing Brothers Karamazov, I go pick up other books and they just feel so much less important. I know it's not a fair comparison because Dostoevsky's dealing with the biggest questions and issues of human life, questions of God, the nature of reality. It's so deep and it's so heavy that, of course, the everyday life and the beautification of it that we'd find in Cheever or Updike or the understated stories of Carver, of course, they're not going to feel as important. So it's not really a fair comparison, but it's weird how this has it's colored the other books that I've been reading since. Now, of course, over time, we'll recalibrate and stabilize. But without a doubt, it has changed how I see other books. And it'll take some time for me to sort of reset. So I told you I'd give you 5.5 things that surprised me. The half thing that surprised me is something that I kind of expected, but not to the degree that we wound up having. Basically, I'm surprised at the rereadability of the book. I knew going in that a really big classic work of literature is going to invite rereads. I didn't expect that it would invite rereading so quickly. I mean, I spent 6 weeks with this thing, a lot of time invested in this book, and almost immediately I wanted to go back and reread portions of the book. In fact, every night for several days in a row after closing this book, I have been going through and rereading scenes and portions and ideas of the book, checking out additional commentary and exploring people's thoughts on the material because it's just so deep. I thought spending 800 pages in the book, Dostoevsky would get really granular and specific about every philosophy, but instead what he does is he sort of opens up the can of worms to so many ideas and lines of thought that really affect us on a deep human level. And so it just invites rereading and exploration unlike any book I've experienced before. I am continually going back to this, and I'll probably carry it with me for many days, months, and perhaps even years to come as sort of a guide, as an exploration. It's full of great sermons and philosophy that we can explore. If you're going to jump into reading Dostoevsky, especially Brothers Karamazov, let me give you a couple tips. Number one, Dostoevsky is not a stylist, right? We think of Hemingway, we think of sort of beautiful sentences of Proust or others. They really emphasize style, the specific choice of words, minimal adverbs. There's these little techniques that are used to bring about a style. Dostoevsky is not a stylist. He wasn't trying to craft some perfect style. He definitely has a style, but it's way more about the philosophy. You think about Dennis Johnson, who's a contemporary writer. He was better with dialogue than anyone I've ever read before. His dialogue was so natural, so fluid, it just sounded perfect. Dostoevsky's not gunning for perfect dialogue. You'll have characters who give dialogue that goes on for pages, full of philosophy and ideas, uninterrupted. He's not aiming for perfectly natural flowing dialogue. He's aiming for ideas. And so just keeping some of those things in mind, if you're a lover of literature, will help you when you read Dostoevsky. You can't really enjoy literature the correct way unless you have the correct expectations going in. And so just knowing some of those things about Dostoevsky will be helpful. But I promise you, if you crack this open with an open mind, read some commentary alongside it, listen to the audiobook, flip through the pages, make your way through this in any way you can, and it will be a watershed, cornerstone moment in your life in literature. I am super grateful I've discovered this work. I'll be quoting people from inside this book and referencing scenes from in the book legitimately as long as I'm on this earth. It's been really impactful. I'm grateful to God for the work of Dostoevsky and the influence that he's had, both in and out of the world of literature.